I never thought I was going to see the day where I would be genuinely excited for Ice Barrier support to come to the TCG. However, that day has come because this Ice Barrier support is actually quite incredible. And in today's video, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the 4 new cards that have been announced, and then we're going to go over 11 different combos you can do using these new cards. All of them are pretty simple. I haven't gone too far with too many complicated combos that use a bunch of garnets. They're all just genuine combos that you will probably be able to do every single game when you're playing these cards. And let's get right into it by talking about the new cards. So the first one I want to talk about is Mirror Magic Master of the Ice Barrier. This is a level 2 Aqua Tuner with 1000 attack and 400 defense. And it says you contribute whatever effect monster you control, special summon up to 3 Ice Barrier tokens with 0 attack, 0 defense, and a level 1 Aquas. And if you do, increase this card's level by the amount summoned. Also, it says here during this turn you cannot special summon monsters except Water Synchros from the extra deck. This is actually a mistranslation on this custom card, which I found. The actual text says you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck except Water Synchro monsters for the rest of the turn. So this is actually incorrect text, but the card does state for the rest of the turn after you use this effect, you are locked into Water Synchro monsters. It has a second effect. If this card is sent to the graveyard by any means, you can add one Ice Barrier card from your deck or among your banished cards, except for another copy of itself, to your hand. Again, doesn't say to your hand. Whoever made this custom card, thank you for making it, but awful translation of the text. So yeah, this card goes to the graveyard by any means. You get to add an Ice Barrier card, and you contribute a monster, summon 3 tokens, and then you're locked into Water Synchro monsters. So this is an exceptionally good card. Something to take note of is it is a level 2 Aqua, which means you can send it off of Swap Frog, which means Swap Frog can just send this to the graveyard, and since it was sent to the graveyard, you can search the entirety of the deck, which is quite insane. This doesn't always use your normal as well, because obviously Swap Frog can discard a water to special summon itself, and the entire deck is water, which is incredible. Yeah, and because it's also a level 2, guess what? We can make Toad, so that's quite cool. We're now going to talk about Georgius. This is another new card. It is a level 6 Winged Beast Tuner with 2000 attack and 1200 defense. If you control another Ice Barrier monster, your opponent cannot activate the effects of monsters in the graveyard. So this is this card's Floodgate effect. A lot of Ice Barrier cards have Floodgate effects. It was kind of the gimmick of the deck. Most of them are bad, but this one's actually quite good. It's just a Abyss Dweller if you control another Ice Barrier monster. What helps this card be playable is it actually has other text on it other than just the Floodgate effect. So you're going to use each of the following effects of Georgius once per turn. If you control an Ice Barrier monster, you can special summon this card from your hand in defense position. Fantastic. He drops himself. If you control an Ice Barrier, special summon him. Your opponent can't activate effects of monsters in the graveyard. Absolutely shits on tier. This also has a third effect, I guess. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can special summon one level 5 or lower Ice Barrier monster from your hand or graveyard. So not only does it drop itself, it also then revives or special summons from hand another Ice Barrier monster, which is absolutely insane. Especially when you consider you'll probably be getting to this by searching it with your Mirror Magic Master. So he's going to be in the graveyard, special summon this guy, and then this guy contribute off a guy to summon a bunch of tokens, and we're off to the races. Got a bunch of material. So this card's an A+ card, Floodgate, Extender, twice, and it's a tuner, which is insane. The other new card in the main deck is Frozen Domains leading to the Ice Barrier. So this is a trap card, and you can only use the second effect of this card's name each once per turn. Number 1, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to the activation of your Ice Barrier monster effects. Insane. I love Altergeist Protocol, and this is essentially that. Your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response. So it's not even your opponent can't negate it. They just can't activate cards in response to your guys, which is insane. Very unfair effect to put on a card. Secondly, if a monster is special summoned from the extra deck, you can return one Ice Barrier monster you control to the hand or deck. Then you can place one card on the field or in the graveyard on the bottom of the deck. So this is also insane. This is like crazy. It's just like you return one of your guys, and then you just get to non-targeting spin a card from the field or the graveyard. Doesn't have to be the one special summon from the extra deck. Insane. This just outs every card in the game, essentially. Absolutely insane. This effect is once per turn. But the first one's insane, the second effect's insane. The third effect is once per turn during your end phase, reveal 3 Ice Barrier monsters with different names in your extra deck or destroy this card. This is weird text to have on this card. I get it. I get why it's here. It's like ensuring that you have to have Ice Barriers in your deck to play this card, but you have to return Ice Barrier monsters you control to actually activate the effect anyway. But that's fine. We're playing a bunch of Ice Barrier cards in the extra deck anyway, so this is always going to be live. Oh, this is always going to be live, sorry. The other new card is Lancia, Dragon Ancestor of the Ice Spirit Mountain. This is a level 10 Synchro Dragon, 3300 attack, 2700 defense, and it is a water tuner plus a non-tuner monster, which is insane. Once per chain, if your opponent special summons a monster, you can special summon 1 Ice Barrier monster from your hand, deck, extra deck, or graveyard. Then you can change one opponent's attack position monster to defense position. So, once per chain, your opponent decided to special summon a monster. Well, here's a Floodgate. And it gets worse because this effect is actually twice per turn. Yeah, you can only use this effect twice per turn. So twice per turn, when your opponent special summons a guy, we're just going to special summon a guy from the hand, deck, extra deck, graveyard, wherever the hell we want to summon it from. So we get to summon both Georgius, or we can summon a copy of Medium, which is summon limit for spells, essentially. Your opponent can only activate 1 spell trap each turn. Or we can summon General Ryo of the Ice Barrier, which says when your opponent's monster effect activated on the field resolves, they must discard 1 card or the effect is negated, which essentially just puts a tax on every single monster effect your opponent wants to use of having to use a resource from the hand, which is absolutely insane. And this guy actually has a little bit of a body on him, as does Medium, so these cards aren't easy to remove either, especially playing into them. Crazy. You could also just special summon a guy like General Wayne, which is also kind of a Floodgate. This card says that spells and traps sent from the field to your opponent's graveyards are banished instead. This is really good against the Labyrinth matchup if Lab is still a deck when the Ice Barrier cards do come out, because this gets their big welcomes and their welcomes banished, which is great. But it also says if this card is normal special summons, you can add an Ice Barrier spell trap from your deck to your hands. Not only are you potentially flooding your opponent out by getting rid of their spells and traps, which might be important, like I guess this could also banish unchained traps, but they still trigger if they're banished and destroyed. It doesn't matter where they go. But you also just get a resource back as well, which is absolutely awesome, as well as just being able to summon these 2 guys as well. Crazy. And that's not the only effect that this guy has. So we'll go into the second effect here. If this face-up synchro summoned card you control leaves the fields by your opponents, you can special summon 1 Ice Barrier synchro monster from your extra deck. This is treated as a synchro summon. So that means if your opponent does remove this card somehow, because he's big and we can have the trap on here to make sure he's like unaffected, and we also have this continuous spell which is protection, we just get to special summon out Trishula, and it's considered if it was synchro summoned, which means you could banish a card each from your opponent's hand, field, and graveyards, or we could summon Big Trish, which is the 11, and this card says when it's synchro summoned you could banish up to 3 cards your opponent controls. So if you remove the new synchro, you're losing a lot of resources anyway, which absolutely crazy. Those are all the new cards. Before we get into the combos, I'm going to talk about the other cards in this list that I haven't really touched on. So Medallion of the Ice Barrier is a non-once per turn Ice Barrier monster searcher, which really helps with consistency issues, and with these cards being so powerful now, this card's absolutely insane, especially it not being a once per turn. Crazy. This card could of course search Revealer of the Ice Barrier, which is a monster we haven't spoken about. This card's quite cool as well. So while you control another Ice Barrier monster, your opponent cannot tribute summons. This is great against Flunderies, which is somehow making a resurgence into the meta. If you didn't see my first place list from the OTS Championships, that's on the channel right now, playing Flunderies. But this card absolutely shits on Flu. You can't tribute summon, and we can special summon it from the deck with our new synchro monster. But this card's also a starter for some reason, so you can only use each of the following effects of Reveal of the Ice Barrier once per turn. You can discard 1 card, special summon 1 Ice Barrier tuner from your deck. Also, you can't special summon monsters for the rest of this turn except for water monsters. So this can special summon our Mirror Magic of the Ice Barrier, which then gives it a card to tribute to be able to summon the tokens. Or we could summon Georgius, and he's also a tuner, and then he can special summon something back because he triggers off being special summoned. So this card's insane, and actually has a third effect, if I remember correctly. Yeah, if you would discard or send cards from your hand to the graveyard to activate an Ice Barrier monster's effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead of one of those cards. This isn't going to come up as much, but hypothetically, you could make you could Revealer, summon your Mirror Magic, and then go into a Brio, which I have the side deck here, and then you could just banish this to bounce a card. I guess that could come up, but the fact that this is just discard special summon a bloke from deck, and it's also a Floodgate for Flu, insane. So we talked about this one and these ones. We talked about General Wayne and these guys. That's Medallion. Freezing Chains of the Ice Barrier is an interesting card. So this says when this card is activated, you can target a level 4 or lower Ice Barrier monster in your graveyard to special summon it. Insane. This is searchable, obviously, through the Mirror Magic, and she is level 4 or lower. So you can search this and instantly reborn it back, which is cool. It also has the effect that while you control 3 or more Ice Barrier monsters you control are unaffected by the activated effects of your opponent's monsters that were special summoned from the extra deck. So let's say that your opponent has decided to special summon twice, and we've summoned 2 Ice Barriers from the deck. We have this continuous spell up. This guy's unaffected by activated effects of monsters from the extra deck, which kind of makes him a towers, because he's 33, so he's going to be really difficult to deal with main deck guys. And that's quite crazy, especially when you're looking out a graveyard and your opponent's having to discard a card for all their monster effects. Well, we talked about Spot Frog a little bit. I think this is a mandatory inclusion. It sends Mirror Magic, which gets you searches. He can bounce himself, which gives you discards for Revealer. He's his free special summon. He can dump Mirror Magic from hand, which gets you searches as well. Insane. We're playing the smallest Ice Jade package known to man. This is Ice Jade Ran... I'm going to try it. Agarine. You may have seen this card used in some Sword Soul lists, like a couple of months ago. I don't think they were very good. This is a level 7 Aqua Tuna with 1500 attack and 2500 defense, and it says you can discard 1 other Ice Jade card or 1 water monster, special summon this card from your hand, then you can special summon 1 Ice Jade token, who is an Aqua Water level 3 with 0 attack and 0 defense. And while that token's on the field, the player who summoned it cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck except for water monsters. This is cool because he's a level 7 Tuna. He summons a level 3 token, which just makes the new synchro on his own. Just this plus any card to discard or any water monster to discard just gets you the synchro monster for free, which is absolutely insane. Like, keeping this as follow-up for your turn 3 if your opponent has removed your threat, and just getting another one instantly is absolutely insane. We're also playing Ice Jade Cradle. This just says add an Ice Jade monster from your deck to your hand with a different name from the cards you control or in your graveyard. So this can just search Agreen. Whether you play 3 and 3, I'm not entirely sure, because after the first Agreen, the Cradle's dead, I guess. But this card's so insane that I think you just want to see it as much as possible. Playing 1 Schiff. I don't know if you know this, but the level 6 Goatee is actually generic, which means we could make it in Ice Barrier and special summon the Goatee, and we get to go for an Ascan play in our opponent's turn for a free banish. So this is just like kind of little Garnet, but he's quite cool, so I like him. And then the rest of the deck, 3 Prosperity, 3 Infinite Impermanence, 2 Ghost Spell, 3 Ash Blossom, and 2 Nibiru. We probably should talk about the cards I'm not playing. So you may have seen other combos and deck lists playing cards like Hexa, Speaker, Warlock, and especially Winds of the Over the Ice Barrier. There's a reason I'm not playing these cards. So the reason I'm not playing Winds Over the Ice Barrier is pretty simple. This card says tribute any number of Ice Barrier monsters, special summon from your deck that many level 4 or lower Ice Barrier monsters with different names from each other. Doesn't put you under any restrictions, you just tribute summon, or tribute a bunch of Ice Barrier monsters, then special summon a bunch. So the key idea that I've seen from a lot of other people's list is they want to resolve Mirror Magic, summon 3 tokens, and then just tribute them off and summon 3 Ice Barrier monsters from the deck, or 4 if you want to tribute this guy as well. The problem with that, in my mind, is that the majority of the level 4 or lower Ice Barrier monsters aren't actually that good. Like, you can summon a Revealer, but it's a hard once per turn, so if you're starting with it, you don't really get much from it. You can special summon Mirror Magic, but the idea is you've used Mirror Magic to get the bodies for Winds Over the Ice Barrier, and the rest of the Ice Barrier monsters who are under level 4, well, I'm not playing them. So you're playing cards like Hexa, which is cool. It's a Foolish Burial for a level 3 or lower Ice Barrier. So this can send your Mirror Magic, which gets you another search, essentially acting like a Swap Frog. But Swap Frog is kind of just better because he can just special summon himself. This is searchable and could be special summoned from the deck with Winds Over. But I don't know. You could definitely play this card in some capacity because he is still a good card, but I just don't know if he's good enough to warrant playing Winds Over. Speaker for the Ice Barrier is a good card. It's just a free special summon, and it stops your opponent from changing the battle position of their defense position monsters, which is kind of cool because the level 10 puts them on defense when he summons from the deck. Also has a graveyard effect where you can banish it from the graveyard to special summon an Ice Barrier token. That's quite cool as well. So this is like 2 free bodies. But like, is it worth special summoning from the deck with wins? I guess it gives you material for synchro summons. But if you're searching for wins, you're missing out on being able to search for the continuous spell or the trap or being able to search for Georgius, which I just don't think is good enough. I could be wrong, and like people might like Furycraft this deck and end up playing 3 copies of wins, because it is an insane card. Don't get me wrong. Being able to special summon as many level 4 or lower ice barriers in any other deck would be absolutely insane. I just don't think the level 4 or lowers are good enough to warrant playing this card. But I could be wrong, and I'll experiment more with it going forward. It has a second effect where you can banish it from the graveyard and target Ice Barrier monster that's banished or in the graveyard add to your hands. Fantastic follow-up. This is a really good card. I'm just not playing it in this list, but I could be wrong. We'll talk about the extra deck now, real quick. So we're playing 1 copy of Almirage. It requires a normal summon monster with 1,000 less attack. Guess what? Mirror Magic's that. This means you can just normal summon it, make an Almirage. Hey, my guy went to the graveyard, so I'll get a search for a guy. I'll get a search for the continuous spell, special at the back, and then, hey, effect, tribute the Almirage. I've got 3 tokens. So you need to play this just because it makes the Mirror Magic a 1-card combo. Playing Coral Anemone, this special summons any water from the graveyard, and it requires you to use 2 water monsters to bake it. Quite cool. 1 Totally Awesome. This is just a negate card. It's follow-up. It's everything, which is insane. 1 Trish, 1 Trish the Zero Dragon. We're playing these mostly as targets for the Lancia, but you could conceivably make both of these just going second to break boards, which is cool. We're playing 1 of the other Aegadine. This card's interesting. So it makes your cards like kind of towers and also banishes a card if you activated it in response to something, and then if your opponent banishes the card to special summon stuff back. He's big, it's a level 10, so it's easy to make, and there's plenty of times where you've already made this and you want to make another 10, so you could make this guy, or you could make something like a Cheng Ying, because he's also a water, and if a card's banished from the graveyard, you get to do other things, which means you can make like a Cheng Ying, you can make a Brio, you can use like Revealer's effect, banish it from the graveyard to pay for the cost of Brio, and then hey, Cheng Ying, something was banished from the graveyard, or banish something else and something else, which is quite cool. We're playing Dragite. This deck is really good at making 8s. Specifically, Mirror Magic is really good at making 8s. It's not very good at making 10s. And Dragite is just a spell trap negate if you have a water in graveyards. And guess what? Our entire deck is water monsters. That's cool, I guess. We're also maining Nib, so there's like a world where Dragite can bounce cards, breaking boards, because we are actually playing a rock in the main deck. I'm playing 1 Arianopus, 1 Ascan, and 1 Goatee of the Deep Beyond. This goes with the Shift in the main deck. If you summon multiple tokens, you can go into a 6, which means you can banish the Shift from deck with this guy, and then in your opponent's turn, it comes back, and you get to make this, and it's a banish. So it's like an extra form of interruption you can make in certain matchups. Playing 1 Coral Dragon. It's a tuner synchro. Sometimes you need the tuner. I mean, a lot of the times you need the tuner. And also it's a draw if it goes to graveyard. That's cool. Gradle Dragon. You can make this because the tuner is a Aqua, and he is exactly an 8, which means if you use the effect to summon 3 tokens, the mirror goes up to a 5, you have 3 tokens, you can whip the ball into a Gradle Dragon, and this card can pop cards equal to the number of water monsters used for its synchro summon. So Gradle Dragon becomes a pop 4, and you can even chain block it with the Mirror Magic, because Mirror Magic went to the graveyard so you can get a search, which is quite good. That is everything. This is going to be a really long video, but we now have 11 combos to show you, so let's get straight into them. So we're going to start with this 1-card Mirror combo. So we're going to normal summon Mirror, and we're going to use the Almirage in our extra deck as what we're going to use as material. And this is going to trigger our Mirror Magic to add Freezing Chains of the Ice Barrier. We can activate Freezing Chains here to special summon out our Mirror Magic, and this is going to allow our Mirror Magic to tribute our Almirage and summon 3 tokens. From here we can sync off a token and the Mirror Magic for a Coral Dragon, since Mirror Magic has made himself level 5, and then we can use the Coral Dragon and the 2 tokens to go into a copy of Dragite. This is going to allow our Coral Dragon to resolve and draw us an extra card, which is quite cool. This is really simple. This is what you could do off one mirror, so it was never going to be amazing, but this is a spell and trap negate, and it is a draw, so with your other 4 cards in hand you can go even further. Our next combo is also Mirror as a 1 card. It's going to be normal summon Mirror, do the exact same thing where we link off for a copy of Almirage and search for a copy of the continuous spell to special summon it back. if Dawning Book will catch up. Activate the continuous spell, special summon back the magic, use the effect to tribute the Almirage, summon 3 tokens, or 2 tokens here actually, and then we're going to sync into a copy of the Arenopus. This is going to allow us to banish a Schiff from the deck. And then in our opponent's standby phase, we're going to special summon back this Schiff. And then in our opponent's main phase, we can use the effect to synchro summon with the Arenopus to summon a copy of Ascan. And if this card is synchro summoned, hey, you can target a fish monster you control and a card your opponent controls and banish them. And then when he's banished, we can banish a fish to special summon him back. This is important because it banishes the Schiff again, which means in our next turn, hypothetically, we can special summon it back in the standby phase if this is survived, and we can go into a copy of the Deep Beyond to banish the entire board, which is kind of cool, I guess, but a simple combo you can do with Mirror Magic. We're going to start going into the Swap Frog combos now. So this is a true one-card Swap Frog combo. So we're going to go normal summon Swap Frog, activate the effect, and we're going to send a copy of Mirror Magic. This is going to trigger our Mirror Magic to add the continuous spell, as we've done in all of the combos so far. And then we're going to use the Freezing Chains to special summon back, and we're going to overlay for a copy of Totally Awesome. This is not an extensive combo, but it is a combo nonetheless. We then pass our turn, and in our opponent's standby phase, we can special summon a copy of Swap Frog from the deck. This is going to allow us to trigger the Swap Frog in our opponent's turn, which is going to send another copy of Mirror Magic. And since it was sent to the graveyard, we get to search for even more follow-up in the form of Medallion or whatever you want to grab. We also have the option that if our Toad uses its effect, we can obviously add a water back, which means we can add this copy of Mirror Magic back to our hand, which is quite cool. It's another way of we'd end up with Mirror Magic and the Medallion in our hand for our follow-up. Or we can add back the Swap Frog and use Medallion to search the Mirror Magic and Swap Frog pitch to get another search. The opportunities are endless. And if our Toad doesn't use its effects, we can summon another Swap Frog back in the next standby phase to send another Mirror Magic to get even another search. So despite the fact that the combo only ends on a Toad, you've actually got so much follow-up and so much searchability just off that. It's kind of insane. We're going to the next combo now, and this is another swap combo. So we're going to normal summon our Swap Frog, and we're going to use the effect to send a Mirror Magic. This is, of course, going to trigger the Mirror Magic to search a continuous spell, as we have done many times at this point. We're then going to activate the continuous spell, special summon back, and we're going to now use the Mirror Magic effect, tributing the Swap Frog to summon some tokens instead of going into Toad. From here, we can sync off into our Coral Dragon, and we can Coral Dragon into a copy of Dragite. This will trigger our Coral Dragon to draw a card, and we end on a Dragite, Spell and Trap, Negate, and a Draw in Hands. This is obviously, I say obviously, it's not obviously worse, but it is considerably worse, I would say, than ending on a Totally Awesome and all that follow-up. But this gets you your search immediately, or your draw immediately, should I say, which means you could extend further potentially if you have gas in your hand, which isn't quite active, if that makes sense. I think I prefer the Toad line myself, but I can see why someone would go for this line. And also the Dragite is just going to stay on board where the Toad isn't. If you Toad negate something in your opponent's turn and the Toad is the only figure on your boards, you're leaving yourself wide open to being OTK'd, whereas Dragite at least is a body as well as being a Spell Trap Negate. We're going to the next combo here, and this is what happens if you have Swap Frog and a Water, but you don't have any other discard. So we're going to start by sending the Swap Frog to special summon itself, and then using the effect to send the Mirror Magic. This is going to trigger the Mirror Magic to add Revealer of the Ice Barrier. From here, we can normal summon a Revealer since we special summon the Swap Frog, and we can use Swap Frog's effect to bounce it back to hand, so the Revealer can discard it to special summon a copy of Georgius from the deck. From here, we can use Georgius' effect, if I can get over next play, to special summon back this Mirror Magic from our graveyard. From here, we can, once I make my decision, sync off our Georgius and our Revealer to go into the level 10 Synchro Monster. This keeps our Mirror Magic on the board, so if it is sent to the graveyard in our opponent's turn, we get to get for a search. But this also just gives us Lancia, which I think is enough just to win some games, because just summoning Floodgates is so good. So when our opponent special summons monsters, we're going to be able to get back a copy of Georgius to lock out their extra deck from our deck, and we're also going to be able to special summon the other one, which makes our opponent have to discard to activate their monster effects, which is actually quite a strong board, and we're getting follow-up from this Mirror Magic probably hitting the grave, in our opponent's turn, and if it doesn't, he's on the board for us to get rid of to search in our turn, which is quite insane. This next combo is going to be Swap Frog plus a water plus any discard. This goes a little bit further, so we're going to go Swap Frog, discard Swap Frog, and then Swap Frog effect, send the Mirror Magic. This is going to allow us to trigger our Mirror Magic to search for the Revealer, like we did last time. But this time we have a discard in hand, so we don't have to bounce this Swap Frog, which means we can discard this Bell, special summon a Georgius, and then use the Georgius effect to special summon back the Mirror Magic. From here, we can sync off our Georgius and our Revealer to go into a copy of Lancia, and we can overlay for a Totally Awesome. I'll probably do that in the opposite order to play around Nib, since I think this is summon 5. You make this summon 5, this summon 6, but for the combo, it doesn't really matter. This is obviously a much stronger board than the last one because we have a Toad on it. But this represents 2 Floodgates in your opponent's turn, and we're going to get a Toad to special summon a Swap Frog to send a Mirror Magic, which is going to get us another search. And then when the Toad hits the graveyards, we're going to get a search for... Well, we're going to get an add bag of any of our waters in graveyards, which is either a special summon from deck, a free special summon, a special summon from graveyards, or our Searcher again, or Swap Frog. All these cards are insane, and we get to get one of them back, which is just ridiculous. Yeah, so this is a really good end board just from, what was it, Swap Frog, a water, and any card to discard. So that's cool. This is going to be pretty much the exact same combo of Swap plus a water plus a discard, but we're going to go a different route with it. So we're going to start with Swap Frog, sending our Swap Frog to special summon himself, and then we're going to go Swap Frog effect, sending a Mirror Magic from the deck to the graveyard, and triggering the effect to search a Revealer. We're then going to normal summon this Revealer, and we're going to use the effect to discard this copy of Nibiru to special summon a copy of Georgius, and then Georgius is going to special summon back this Mirror Magic from our graveyards. From here, we can sync off into a copy of Lancia, and instead of going for Toad, we're going to distribute off this Swap Frog to summon some tokens. And from here, we're going to go into a Coral Dragon and then into a Dragite, which we've done in previous combos. This puts a body on board that is going to stick, unlike the Totally Awesome, and this also triggers the Coral Dragon to get a draw. I genuinely think this is a worse board than the last one because you have less follow-up, but it's still good. It's still 2 Floodgates from the deck, and a body that's going to stick, and a Spell Trap negate. Potentially a bounce if you see the Nibiru. Still quite good. I'm not upset about it whatsoever. 4 more combos to go through. Right, this next one is Swap plus a water plus a discard, number 3. So we're going to start by activating Swap Frog effect, sending a Swap Frog to special summon a Swap Frog, and then we're going to send the Mirror Magic, as most of these combos have started. From here, we're going to add Revealer of the Ice Barrier from deck to hand. Again, send a Nibiru, summon Georgius. Georgius effect, special summon back the Mirror Magic. These are getting a bit repetitive, I agree. From here, we special summon our copy of the Lancia, and this time, instead of going for the Coral Dragon Dragite line, we instead go for the Goatee line, where we make the level 6 Goatee, banish a Shift, in our opponent's standby phase, special summon back the Shift, and in our opponent's main phase, we Shift for a banish. This is here to show you that you could be quite flexible with the boards you put up. Like we had the opportunity of an Omni negate, Spell Trap negate, or a banish with potential follow-up into the level 10, as well as having these Floodgates being able to be special summoned from the deck. So choose what's best based on what deck you're going up against, I guess. We'll go into the next combo here. This is Revealer plus a discard. Nice and simple. So we're going to normal summon Revealer, discard a card, and we're going to special summon a copy of this Mirror Magic from deck. From here, we're going to link off our 2 cards to go into a Coral Nebody. This is going to trigger our Mirror Magic to add a copy of Georgius, and then we can use the link to special summon back this copy of Revealer. From here, we can special summon Georgius since we control an Ice Barrier, and we can use the Georgius effect to special summon back the Mirror Magic. This is going to allow us to synchro off our 2 guys for a copy of Lancia, and then we can use our Mirror Magic to special summon 3 tokens, and we can go into our Coral Dragon, and we can go into our Dragite as we've done previously, just showing you can get to this combo from multiple other ways. This is of course going to trigger our Coral Dragon to get another draw. In this case it would have been Medallion, which doesn't really do much because we've gone through most of our Ice Barriers that actually do things, but it is follow-up for next turn. We're going to the next combo. It's Revealer plus a discard, number 2. You probably can see where this is going to go. It's going to be Revealer, special summon the Mirror Magic. We're going to link off into the link. This is going to trigger our Mirror Magic to search for a Georgius, and then we are going to special summon back a Ice Barrier from our graveyard, so we can trigger Georgius' effect to special summon, which is going to special summon the other one. We go into a copy of Lancia, as we've done previously, and then we use Mirror Magic, tributing the link to special summon 2 tokens instead of 3, so we can do the Goatee line instead of going into the Dragite line. Exactly the same as we've done previously, where we special summon back the Shift, and then synchro off for a copy of the Ascan, is it? Yeah, Ascan to get a banish of opponent's cards, and then when the Ascan's banished, obviously we can special summon it back by banishing the Shift, and then hypothetically in the next turn, we can special summon back the Shift to sync with the Ascan to go into the Goatee to banish absolutely everything on the board. Probably don't want to get rid of our Lancia, but this is hypothetically a line you could go down. We can go into the last combo now, and I wanted a combo that showed off Ice Jade ran Agadine. Again, I can't pronounce this card's name, and so this is Agadine plus the Mirror Magic. So we're going to start with Airgreen, discarding Mirror Magic to special summon himself with a token. This is going to trigger our Mirror Magic to add a copy of Georgius from deck to hand. From here, we can synchro summon into our copy of Lancia, since it's just a generic 10. Requires a Water Tuner, but we have that. We then use Georgius' effect to special summon back this Mirror Magic, and the Mirror Magic tributing the Georgius to special summon a bunch of tokens. And of course, we can either do the Dragite line here or the Goatee line. So in this case, I've decided to go for Coral Dragon into Dragite and getting our draw off of the Coral Dragon. You'll notice that this combo doesn't actually use your normal summon. So hypothetically, if you had, I guess if you had like a green plus this plus a card to discard, instead of searching for Georgius, you could search for Revealer, normal summon Revealer, discard the card, special summon the Georgius, special summon back, and you would have another body, which means you could probably end on a Cheng Ying as well, possibly. I haven't actually labbed that combo out, but there are so many combos you can do with this deck. Shockingly enough, we've timed out due to inactivity. It took us a while to get through all those combos, but we will go back to the deck so you can have a look at the list again. I'm really excited for these cards to come out. I think they're going to be really, really cool. It seems like a really mid-range combo deck with just the fact that Ice Barrier has like 30 different floodgates that you could potentially tech into your deck for whatever the format is. Like this list is playing 2, kind of 4, because these guys are also floodgates. Yeah, really cool. And there's so many other floodgates. There's an anti-spell in like Warlock of the Ice Barrier. This is literally just anti-spell if you control an Ice Barrier card, which is really cool. And obviously you can turn it off because you can just remove this card from your board by link summoning with it. Insane. I think this is going to be a really, really interesting deck. I'm really looking forward to it. And yeah, if you enjoyed watching this video and enjoyed a slightly more in-depth version of a combo video, I would appreciate it if you left a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'm sure we'll make more in the future. Anyway, hope you guys have a good rest of your day.